The biggest company you've never heard of now controls what 68% of American households see on local news. And they want to control about 80%. And this is at the center of why Jimmy Kimmel was removed from TV. The company is called Nexstar Media Group, and we're going to do a deep dive into how they're so powerful and how they are systemically disrupting how Americans get access to information. This week, ABC announced that Jimmy Kimmel would be taken off the air indefinitely after Trump's FCC chairman hinted that the network's broadcast license might be at risk due to Kimmel's commentary about Charlie Kirk and his assassination. Disney, which owns ABC, ultimately made the decision to sideline Kimmel, but Nexstar owns 200 local ABC stations, and they actually forced their hand. According to multiple reports, Nexstar told Disney that their ABC affiliate stations would no longer carry Kimmel. Sinclair, a conservative media conglomerate that also owns 200-something ABC stations, followed suit. Not wanting to go to war with their affiliates or the president of Disney, bowed to this pressure. So who is Nexstar Media Group, and how do they have so much power over Disney? We should probably start with a simple explanation of how broadcast television works. Say you're watching a show on ABC, NBC, or CBS. You're technically watching a local network station in your city. Sometimes that station is actually owned by the network itself, like WABC in New York. But most of the time, it's actually owned by another company who has agreed to affiliate with one of their big networks. So, for instance, Nexstar owns KTVX, ABC4 in Salt Lake City, Utah, and its ABC affiliate. It used to be the local station that affiliates were owned by hundreds of independent owners. But since the 1990s, few companies like Nexstar and Tenga have bought most of these stations. One of these conglomerates, Sinclair, is avowedly conservative. Each of their local stations ran this video during the first Trump administration. Cut to the clip.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about troubling and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Think about how scary that is. Imagine if the same company monopolized or owned every news station in your area, and they just decided not to cover the ICE kidnappings or to spin the Medicaid cuts as a result of trans people existing. If everyone's getting their same information from the same crowd-controlled source, no one would actually even know what's really happening. And to zoom out for a second, when I say monopolizing, I mean one corporation owning so many news outlets that they can control what information entire communities receive. It's dangerous because local stations is where a lot of people get their trusted information about everything from school board elections to national politics. And when that's all controlled by one company with political ties, it becomes propaganda that's trying to pass off as community journalism. Picture this, every local news station reading the exact same script or covering the exact same story or taking the same corrupt spin every night. This is actually what's happening in America all over cities. And what you'll discover about who's writing those scripts will shock you. Nexstar owns over 200 television stations across 116 markets. They reach 220 million Americans, nearly 68% of US households. In many of these markets, they don't own just one station, they own multiple stations, creating the illusion of choice while ensuring complete control over local information. But why do they have it out for Jimmy Kimmel? Well, they are pursuing a $6.2 billion merger with Tenga, another major station group. If this deal goes through and Trump's handpicked FCC chairman Brendan Carr seems determined to make that happen, by the way, Nexstar would control about 80% of American households. 4 out of 5 American families getting their news from a single corporation entity. And that entity has very clear political loyalties. Pressured the networks over his commentary. This morning, you might have noticed that your local news felt a little different. Maybe the stories seemed a little familiar, or the talking points seemed oddly similar to what you've heard in the next town over. If you felt that way, you're not imagining it. When one company owns most of the media, they control what news people see and also what news people don't see, and they can push out their own views without people even realizing it's biased. Something bad happens involving that company or its partners, they can just not report it. While Trump wages his public war on free speech, suing CBS, threatening NBC's license, dismantling NPR and PBS and Voice of America, the US government's international broadcasting service that counters foreign propaganda. A shadow campaign is happening in plain sight. But what I'm about to show you will reveal how far this goes. It's way beyond simple bias. What we're talking about is the complete corporate capture of American information. And the most terrifying part, the plan is almost finished. If this investigation concerns you, subscribe now, because what's coming next will change how you see every local news broadcast forever. Remember when Kamala Harris suggested that Trump's Twitter account be suspended? MAGA world screamed about free speech violations, but Harris had legitimate grounds. Under the Supreme Court's Brandenburg versus Ohio decision, speech loses First Amendment protection when it's directed to incite imminent lawless action and likely to produce such action. Here's what that actually means in normal people speak. The Constitution protects almost all speech, even offensive and hateful statements, but there's a narrow exception for speech that directly tells people how to commit violence right now and is likely to make them actually do it. For example, telling an armed crowd, go kill that person over there, isn't protected speech. Neither is giving people a list of specific targets to attack by saying, I hate politicians, or even like politicians deserve to die. That's protected no matter how offensive and weird. The key is timing and directness. Abstract ideas about violence are protected, even though a little bit messed up. Direct commands to commit immediate violence are not protected. Harris wasn't calling for general censorship. She was pointing out that Trump's posts on January 6th crossed the line from protected speech into that unprotected direct incitement that led to, actual violence. But look what's happening right now. Trump has real power, and in just months, Trump has systematically dismantled independent media. He sued the Wall Street Journal. Fox News reporter owner Robert Murdoch pressured CBS not to fact check his Department of Homeland Security Secretary Christie dog-killing gnome. He threatened media companies with the Espionage Act for publishing leaked, sued Paramount with 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris, and then held their Skydance merger hostage until they paid him $16 million. He's also threatened to revoke NBC and ABC's broadcasting licenses for unfavorable coverage. He gutted NPR, PBS, and is canceling $1.1 billion in public broadcasting funding. This is all happening in Trump's America. You criticize Trump, you lose your platform. The public attacks are just beginning, though. The real threat is what's happening behind closed doors and through this massive company that most Americans have never heard of. While everyone watches Trump's Twitter tantrums and lawsuit headlines, the real destruction of American journalism is happening quietly, market by market, station by station. Now you might be thinking, that sounds extreme. That surely there are safeguards that other politicians would speak up if this was really as dangerous as it sounds? Well, some are. Even Republicans are starting to realize how far Trump's FCC has gone in enabling this media consolidation. And I'm going to show you how deep this corporate political alliance goes. But first, I need you to listen to what one of Trump's most outspoken allies is saying about the FCC's behavior. Cut to the clip.
No, 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 no. Look, I like Brendan Carr. He's a good guy. He's the chairman of the FCC. I work closely with him. But what he said there is dangerous as hell.
For people that are listening, because this is going to be, quote, controversial, so I want to make sure we explain it clearly. When you say no and it's dangerous, explain and run this out, the slippery slope that this can open, so that people understand why we're saying it.
So the Federal Communication Commission is in charge of granting broadcast licenses. So ABC, NBC, CBS, they have licenses from the FCC. It is true that under statute, they're required to be in the public interest.
Yep.
What he is saying is Jimmy Kimmel was lying. That's true. He was lying. And his lying to the American people is not in the public interest. And so he threatens explicitly, we're going to cancel ABC's license. We're going to take him off the air. So ABC cannot broadcast anymore. And I got to say, he threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. And I got to say, look, I understand. Jimmy Kimmel has mocked me so many times I cannot count. The corporate media, they are dishonest. They are liars. I hate what Jimmy Kimmel said. I am thrilled that he was fired. But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying,
what
we
you
don't
can't
like
say
what you, the media, have said, we're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like. That will end up bad for conservatives. It reminds me of, you and I are both fans of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
J.R.R. Tolkien. It reminds me of like the Ring of Power. And it is so attractive. It's sort of like conservatives are saying, wait, if we have government, we have power.
Yeah.
We can ban the media. Let me tell you what will happen. Going down this road, there will come a time when a Democrat wins again. Wins the White House.
They will get rid of every
Democrat
talk show host in
FCC,
America that's a conservative. They'll get rid of every podcast. They'll get rid of everybody
they
on
will
YouTube.
silence us. They will use this power, and they will use it ruthlessly. I think it is unbelievably dangerous for government to put itself in the position of saying, we're going to decide what speech we like and what we don't, and we're going to threaten to take you off air if we don't like what you're saying. And it might feel good right now to threaten Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
But when it is used to silence every conservative in America, we will regret it. And so, again, I like Brendan Carr, but we should not be in this business.
When Ted Cruz and for a bruisin', is calling out Trump's own FCC chairman for using, quote, mafia boss tactics as a Jersey girl, I do not take those words lightly, against comedians, you know we've crossed a line. What we're seeing here is a coordinated effort. Nexstar CEO Perry Sook publicly celebrated Trump's election victory, explicitly connecting it to his company's expansion plans. He knows the fix is in. He knows Trump's FCC will deliver the deregulation that Nexstar needs to complete their monopolization of American media. But the connection actually runs deeper than these political donations and regulatory capture. In 2021, Nexstar hired Bill Shine to run their national news operation. If that name sounds familiar, it should. Shine was a top Fox News executive who helped build their propaganda machine. Then he became none other than Trump's White House communications director, crafting the administration's media strategy from inside the Oval Office. Now he's at Nexstar, shaping editorial decisions for hundreds of local news stations. And when Jennifer Lyons, a very respected Chicago news veteran, learned of Shine's hiring, she immediately saw herself out. She resigned. She refused to participate in what she recognized as a right-wing propaganda operation, masquerading as local journalism. This is Nexstar's model. Hire Trump's operatives, claim objectivity, exploit the trust Americans have in local news. It's the Fox News methodology wrapped up in hometown credibility, making it far more dangerous than openly partisan outlets. Trump's FCC chair, Brendan Carr, has openly declared his intention to eliminate broadcast ownership caps altogether. These caps were established by Congress decades ago, and they currently limit any single corporation to owning stations that reach more than 39% of U.S. households. Carr claims that the FCC has authority to unilaterally overturn congressional law. Legal experts call this a constitutional crisis. Carr doesn't care. He's betting that Trump's Justice Department won't challenge the FCC overreach because it benefits corporate donors. He's probably right. This regulatory capture is so complete that Nexstar doesn't even bother hiding their violations anymore. They use shell companies and shared service agreements to exceed current ownership limits while regulators look the other way, while they're also preparing to eliminate the rules entirely. When people don't have access to a range of facts and views, it's easier for those in power to manipulate them. A strong democracy needs many voices, not just one loud one calling all of the shots. Nexstar's business model is simple: maximize profits, minimize investments. They send identical strips to the same stations nationwide, the same corporate messaging being delivered by different faces in different cities. Local news stops being local. Think about a major health crisis, but the media company has ties to the company causing it, so they just don't report on it. People could get sick or die and never even know the cause. Let's look at an example. Like, for instance, imagine a chemical company, industrial waste is contaminating local water supplies. It's causing cancer in clusters in nearby communities. But the newspaper that should be investigating this story happens to be owned by the same conglomerate that also has significant investments in the same chemical company. The health crisis grows, families suffer, yet the story never makes it to print. Meanwhile, they're slashing newsroom budgets and laying off the very same reporters who might have connected the dots. One former Nexstar reporter described the horror. We went from 5 reporters covering City Hall to 1 covering City Hall. County courthouses, 3 schools, districts, weekend sports. You can't do journalism when you're spread that thin. Investigative journalism suffers. Fewer reporters can dig into fewer powerful people and expose their wrongdoings. Local news gets shut down or replaced with generic national content that doesn't reflect the community. The result is predictable. Corruption goes uninvestigated. Local officials operate without oversight. Corporate interests face zero scrutiny. If you're interested in this, subscribe to Stay Informed, because we're going to expose the full extent of this media manipulation. You won't believe who's actually controlling your local news station. So unlike Fox News or other openly conservative outlets, Nexstar masquerades as objective local journalism. When your trusted local anchor, someone who feels like part of the community, delivers talking points crafted by Trump's former communications director, it doesn't feel like propaganda. It feels like news. This is pretty sophisticated manipulation, and it's hard for your average consumer to catch. Nexstar exploits the trust Americans place in local journalism to inject conservative ideology directly into the democratic process. They're not just reporting on elections, they're influencing them with editorial decisions shaped by former Trump administration officials. The democratic collapse. Local journalism is democracy's circulatory system. It's how citizens learn about city council meetings. It's how school board elections go down, county budgets are shaped, state legislative races. It's how we figure out what's going on the local level. When corporate monopolists control that information flow, they control the democratic participation. Research proves that media consolidation decreases voter turnout and civic engagement. When local news becomes standardized corporate messaging shaped by political operatives, communities lose their connection to local government. In dozens of markets across America, Nexstar has presided over the collapse of meaningful political coverage. They've created information deserts where corruption flourishes. Incumbents face zero scrutiny, and corporate interests operate without any opposition. The Tenga merger represents the endgame. Once Nexstar controls 80% of American households, they become essentially unstoppable. They're too powerful. Trump's public attacks on ABC, CBS, and NBC are just theatrical distractions. The real media takeover is happening through Nexstar, and it's happening quietly and legally with regulatory approval from none other than Trump's handpicked FCC chair. While everyone debates whether Trump should be able to sue 60 Minutes, Nexstar is building a media empire that makes such lawsuits unnecessary. Why sue hostile networks when you can simply buy every local station and control the information flow directly? It's like if one company owned all the food and then slowly removed all of the nutrition, but told you it's fine because they said so. When people only get junk information, they lose the ability to think critically or push back. Citizens must pressure advertisers to abandon Nexstar and support independent journalism. We have to demand that the remaining Democratic officials use every legal tool to block this consolidation. Imagine growing up and never hearing a single voice that challenges the system. Because every channel, every app, every part of your feed is owned by the system itself. You never even know you're being misled. You end up with fewer choices. Every single news source starts to sound the same. And it's not just about politics, it's about controlling information that reaches all people. The Justice Department has an antitrust authority to stop this consolidation. They won't use it while Trump controls the executive branch. Congress could maybe block Carr's attempt to eliminate ownership caps. They won't act while Republicans control both chambers. This is why independent journalism really matters. Subscribe now to support this investigation into media monopolies that you're not going to see on mainstream outlets. If the Tenga merger goes through and ownership caps disappear, Nexstar won't stop at 80%. They will acquire everything. We didn't vote for corporate-controlled local news. We didn't consent to having Trump operatives manipulate our community's information. The question isn't about if you've heard of Nexstar Media Group. The question is whether you understand that they're about to control 80% of the local news in America, guided by Trump officials and the Fox News executives, with the blessings of a captured regulatory system. Look, I get it. Media consolidation sounds boring. Regulatory capture sounds like it's this like wonky policy talk. But this is happening right now in your town, affecting the news you see every morning. And most people have no idea it's even happening. It's not an accident. That's the whole point. And listen, we talked about it a few weeks back, but if anyone's seen the White House social media accounts as of late, it's really scary out there. They're literally trying to blame the abolition of Medicare and Medicaid on violent, illegal, transgender immigrants. We know that's not the reality. If you've ever been in your parents' hometown or a hometown and you've seen wacky news coverage of a really minor incident happening someplace and it's not significant to what's really happening in global politics or US politics, it's a sign of what the future is going to look like with Trump allies controlling our access to information. And again, I'm going to ask you one more time, if you've enjoyed this segment, please subscribe. We cannot grow without your support. And I am Lauren P. Lauren like Lorena across all social channels. Thank you.